Hi everyone. Good morning. Can you guys see me? Am I audible to everyone? Visible. Lovely, 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 lovely. So we will begin the class in like next 5 minutes. Everything is working in order. Please kindly just be patient. मैं थोड़ा सा cigarette पी के आ रहा हूँ, right? I woke up late, so I'll just have few drags and then we will begin. Just give me like 5 minutes. I promise we'll begin in 5 minutes, right? This is the presentation that we are gonna start off. Ruchika Saxena mentioned about A.L. Basham. That's one of my personal favorites, right? One of my personal favorites, A.L. Basham. I would be referring a lot. I would be referring a lot. In fact, the drive that I have mentioned, the Google Drive that I have mentioned, there I have uploaded a couple of articles of A.L. Basham, right, on early medieval India and ancient India. So yeah, A.L. Basham is somebody who is really, really, if you can read certain essays by A.L. Basham, that would be very good. That would be very good. I will be giving you, those links as well. I'll be giving you those links as well, right? Okay. Sajal Jain ने बेटा पूछा था कि is medieval history relevant for us? It is. In a nutshell, if you just want a simple answer, it is immensely, because remember, देखो एक बात ध्यान रखो बच्चे, सबसे ज्यादा कम relevant ancient, right? The least relevant is ancient. The most relevant is modern, right? Chronologically, if you want to understand things, right? So medieval is extremely important. Please do not get under any kind of that impression. If you want to understand things, if your aim is to just ratify is just to rote learn and regurgitate in an exam and hope that you get lucky that whatever you have learned is that what is going to come, then maybe you can leave it, but I would not personally suggest it. I would not personally suggest it. Because some people do argue in that sense कि भाई अभी बहुत ज़्यादा भाई क्या कहते हैं Mughal, not many questions come from Mughal or Sultanate period, so shall we just avoid it? You can avoid it, but do you realize then once we start studying modern India and I start explaining you zamindari system, jagirdari system, those terms may not you may not understand them, and secondly, without understanding medieval, you will not be able to understand the society of that time, man. The way we have ancient mein how we were, you have understood, or you will understand, and you know how we are in modern, but you do not know what happened in the medieval. I doubt that this kind of an information can be of any help, not only in your life, but also I doubt it can be of any help in your exam as well. No, broken knowledge, fragmented knowledge will not produce integrated officers. It will not. And I want you to be not just officers. I want you guys to be exceptional officers. I seriously do, man. Right? So exposure, education, and your action, that will determine how exceptional you get, isn't it? So yeah, we will try and understand everything as objectively as possible. right? And come to our own understanding, arguments, opinions. You know, there's a person who's known as Francis Bacon. He's considered as a father of scientific thought. He says something very beautiful. He said, never read, never read to agree or disagree, right? Never read to agree or disagree, but to weigh and consider. This is father of scientific thought, Francis Bacon. That you should not listen to whether you are in agreement or disagreement. No, you should simply listen to take the new information and weigh and consider and use it as according to your intellect. Right? So remember, everybody, remember this, right? Shubham Patel asked about history optional. Shubham, you have my number. I mean, if you want to know anything about history optional as such, I would recommend that you can probably call me up whenever you feel like, or maybe you can email me. We can talk about it, no problem. Atreya Bose, yeah, thank you so much, Atreya. You recommended Bharat Ek Khoj, right? Bharat Ek Khoj is a wonderful, wonderful series, wonderful series. You guys can watch it in case you're interested. It will really give you a feel of our past. It will give you a feel of our past, definitely. It's based on a book by Jawaharlal Nehru, Discovery of India, right? So yeah, you can watch it. Yeah, so these were a few of the queries which I had missed, and please do not consider me an IAF-10. I just have that degree. I just have a degree of a BTech. I just have a degree of MBA, but I haven't learned anything from there. I haven't. These are question marks on our education system, actually. Right now, let's come back to what we're discussing without wasting any more time. Let's start, and I will try and give you some kind of a chronology. Dekho, when we start talking about India, thoda sa geographic, a physical map hai. I thought we'll begin with this. Of course, you guys have seen such maps, I'm sure, a gazillion times. But still, I thought, maybe we can just have a look at it, absorb it, and make some sense out of it, right? These are your Vindhyas, Satpura, right? Maikal range. And then we have Narmada, Tapi rivers. Do notice the rivers here, the Deccan Plateau. This is the Deccan Plateau, right? The Indus River, the Ganga River, and the Brahmaputra River. These are Western Himalayas, the Hindu Kush, Suleiman, Kirthar range, right? Certain cities that will keep coming up, right? We will look at them. We will look at them again and again. So if we look at our prehistory, right? If we look at our prehistory, this is one guy that you need to begin with. Robert Bruce Foote, right? He's considered as father of Indian prehistory. Father of Indian prehistory. What do I mean by that? That means, you remember, I tried and we understood these terms such as prehistory, proto-history, and history. And I told you prehistory is that time when there was no writing available, no script available. So the only way in which we can understand the society of that time is through artifacts, right? It's through primarily their stone tools, right? The earliest of the stone tools that were discovered by Robert Bruce Foote. He discovered a Paleolithic stone axe from Pallavaram in Chennai, and this is 1850s. He is known as a father of Indian prehistory, right? At Palavaram and at Atirapakkam, at Kurunul Cave, at Husanagi Valley, these are all the, places where he actually, that early, he was able to undertake certain excavations and come up with a lot of theories which have proven to be correct recently. He theorized looking at all these stone axes. See, I'll show you a photo. I think I have a photo here. Yeah. See, these are the earliest stone axes and cleavers which were discovered by Foote, Robert Bruce Foote. He discovered an hand axe. This is called as an hand axe from Palavaram. Remember, it's a part of the lower Paleolithic times. This is called as hand axe because it was simply held in hand and used like a hammer. Later in the Neolithic times, when composite tools will be built, there will be a rod, wooden rod or a bone attached to it, and it will be tied. Then it will look more like axe the way we know it. But remember why it is being called as hand axe, right? They will hold it like this and they'll use to smash it. This is a cleaver. It was discovered from Atirampakkam. Now, he said, 1850s, he said that these guys, this entire region near Chennai, he said it is your Madrasian culture. He named it as Madrasian culture. And he said that this Madrasian culture must have been a very flourishing Paleolithic culture here in this part. And right from 2011 till 2019, and even now studies at Atirampakkam are going on. I think there's an archaeologist by the name of Shanti Pappu. You can go and read some Hindu articles on it, right? News articles on it. So what has happened here is these stone tools, they have been dated to 1.5 million years ago. 15 lakh years ago. Itne purane, they are so old. Right? And these tools, although Robert Bruce Foote calls them Madrasian, they are better referred to as Acheulean, or you can call Acheulean or Acheulean, whatever you feel like, man. It's a French term, right? Acheulean. Right? These are Acheulean tools which can be as old as 1.5 million years old. They have been discovered here at Atirampakkam. This is the oldest stone tools available in India. Initially, we thought the earliest stone tools come from Bori in Maharashtra. They were around 1.3 million years old. Now we are getting 1.5 and even going beyond it at times it may seem. And these are Acheulean hand axe in a bolte hain. Why? Because they have this distinct, pier, ya to fir kehte hain tear drop shape. You get my point, right? So they are considered quite an improvement over the other older axes of lower Paleolithic. They are considered an improvement. Within lower Paleolithic, you also see improvements, right? We will not go there, thankfully. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, Acheulean tools primarily imply, hand axe, which are this kind of a shape. They're kind of a teardrop shape or pear shape, right? That's how they define it. They're pointy at one end, right? They're slightly more stylistic than just simply a chopper tool, right? Now, Somebody asked a question. Yeah, how do they quantify how old these tools are? Man, there are a lot of testings which they undertake, right? I will not be the correct person to. I mean, I just have read a couple of names here: thermonucleescence, and then they also, of course, carbon-14. To organic kile, they use for organic material they use carbon-14. A lot of DNA testing has also gone on, and these kinds of things have been taking place, so pretty advanced science, I can tell you that, right? That's what they use to date them. No, if you want to define Paleolithic as such, Sajal, uh, you should begin it from, probably in the context of India, you can begin it from around, let's say, 5 lakh years ago, 5 lakh BCE, 5 lakh BCE. But again, I would not ask you to take that date very seriously, because ideally speaking, you should now take it to 1.5 million years ago, because that is when the oldest tools come in, right? And they do actually, but these tools are very few and at only very few places. Again, one book which I can recommend at this point of time, if you guys are really interested in this, and if you cannot read that book, at least you can read this guy's interview. He is in news, and this is Tony Joseph, right? And he has come up with a book last year, right? This is called as Early Indians. Excellent book, very nicely written. But you can read the book if you feel like. It's easy to read. And if you feel that you don't want to take up that right now, what you can do is you can read his opinion, you can read his argument in newspaper, because it is backed by a lot of scientific data here, right? And I would really advise that you go and read that book. It will help you in crystallizing your thought, right? Tony Joseph, Early Indians. Right, so these are few of the earliest stone tools that have been uh, discovered here. Now these are the lower Paleolithic sites here. As you can see, they are pretty much found in most of India, except in the valleys of Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. There, because of course there are no stones there, so maybe that is why we do not find them in large numbers present here, right? uh, Tell me something, what is this waiting room thing? Do I need to give some kind of a permission for you to join? Yeah, true, okay. So मैं जैसा कि आपको what I was saying was uh, that these are few of the Paleolithic sites here, right? These are lower Paleolithic sites here. You will not find them in Indus, you will not find them in Ganga, and you will not find them in Brahmaputra. But rest of India, you do find them. You do find them, right? Most important here, most important site that you can probably keep at the top of your head when it comes to lower Paleolithic is Didwana in Rajasthan, and Budha Pushkar Lake, right? These are the two names which I would like you to remember. I have given a map here, and I have given all the list here from IGNU. You can have a look and locate it, and in case you feel like, although I would agree, it would not serve much of the purpose for us, right? Uh, Middle Paleolithic in India is known as Nevasan culture. You remember Middle Paleolithic? Middle Paleolithic was that time when flake technology came to be used, right? Not just core technology, but core-based technology, but flake-based technology also came to be used, right? And because of that, we notice the first site which was discovered was Nevasa in Maharashtra. And hence, the Middle Paleolithic is, mostly called as Nevasan culture because that is considered as the type site. Okay. These are some of the Middle Paleolithic sites here. Middle Paleolithic, देखो यहीं पर कहीं पर Nevasa भी होना चाहिए. This is in Godavari, near Godavari, right? These are lower Paleolithic. I'm so sorry. These are lower Paleolithic. These are Middle Paleolithic. Yeah, this is Nevasa. When it comes to Upper Paleolithic site, you remember Upper Paleolithic where we had those parallel edged Burin kind of pens coming up, right? Parallel edged. They looked a lot like screwdriver or a pen, and they could be used to carve on cave walls, right? Those started coming in, and now we notice in Upper Paleolithic, the most important site here is, of course, Bhimbedka. That's the most important site here, right? We also notice ostrich eggshells in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and Madhya Pradesh. The entire, western and central India, this region, we notice a lot of ostrich eggshells. That indicates presence of ostrich. What does that mean? Ostrich lives in arid climate. So this implies that this entire region during the Upper Paleolithic time must have been quite arid, dry, it implies, right? Okay. So, all right. So, if we look at, once we have understood these, the 2-3 basic maps here, if you've just seen through them, yeah, once you've seen through them, I would like to now take you through some certain chapters and give you, some regional understanding, right? How will I begin with it? The first chapter of our history, uh, begins with Harappa, right? It begins with Harappa. Okay, and this entire chapter unfolds in northwestern region of India. This is the map here. Right? The entire time period is often given as 3500 to 1300 BCE for Harappa. The 3500 to 2600 BCE time period is considered to be early Harappa, while 2600 to 1900, pertaining to this map, this is considered as the mature phase of Harappa. This is the phase where Harappan civilization saw emergence of towns and cities and long distance trade. Right? So this is the time period when Harappa really becomes famous for the things that we know about. Town planning, standardization, uniform weights and measures, their seals, large brick structures, right? Fire-baked bricks, etc. We start finding them. Right? This is 2600 to 1900 BCE. Harappa is considered one of the earliest Bronze Age civilization. Right? If you notice, somewhere around here, this is your Bolan Pass. Bolan. This is here around is Bolan Pass. And around here is considered the place which is called as Mehergarh. Right? It is in modern day Pakistan, Mehergarh. It is, it is believed that Mehergarh was populated in around 7000 BCE. 7000 BCE, Mehergarh emerged as a small village. And people here, if you see stratigraphic analysis at Mehergarh, you would realize how people learnt about new technologies. We see them using copper, we see them using wheel, we see them using cotton, cultivating cotton. We see them cultivating grapes. We see them using seals. We see them establishing trade routes, long distance trade routes. And just people from here, these, regions such as Mehergarh, they come down and establish in 2600 to 1900 the mature phase where the cities emerge. We will talk about this. We will talk about this, right? The point which I'm trying to tell you here is that in 1900 BCE, there is a general decline. The urban centers, the cities such as Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Rakhigarhi, Kalibangan, Dholavira, etc., we notice that these start declining or they are abandoned, right? And because of this, a lot of people say that, this is where the civilization probably ended. But that will be wrong to understand it in this manner. It will be extremely wrong because Harappan civilization, the element of civilization, the element of urban civilization, although vanished, such as the script and uniform weight, etc. Yet, the cultural aspects and several of the technologies and customs and their traditions, they continued as people from these regions, went to other areas after 1900 BCE, and they assimilated with these other, Neolithic, Chalcolithic cultures which were present around them. You get my point here, right? They were able to get and assimilate, and we see a continuation of that happening. That is why you would always find arguments where we would be linking some Harappan custom or Harappan belief to our current times and linking it to modern day Hinduism. The idea is to show the element of antiquity here. The idea is to show the element of antiquity here. Okay, so the elements of continuity we would be focusing on, and now a lot of scholars also argue that what happened? Why were the cities deserted? Why did the cities? Why did they decline? A lot of theories present. Some say that they were linked to the climate shifts. You remember I told you about that Meghalayan stage global drought, 200-year long. So a lot of people link it to that. Some people also link it to theories such as shifting of rivers, etc. Right? I would also advise you to, because we're discussing it with the map here right at the start, I would advise you to notice this is river Indus. This is river Indus. Satellite images have shown that on the eastern side of Indus, there also flew a river like this. देखो यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा dotted दिखाई गई है. right? This river was called as Ghaggar Hakra River. This river was called as Ghaggar Hakra River. And this river was also very important for this entire civilization. I mean, instead of Indus Valley civilization, if you want to link one river with it, although that would be wrong because it was very large a civilization, some say that it was Ghaggar Hakra River, which was quite important. Right? This existed, and this, again, it has vanished. It has vanished. A lot of people, and again, this is again satellite images which which indicate presence of those underground channels, and they say that Ghaggar Hakra was such a huge river that Satluj and Yamuna, imagine this, Yamuna and Satluj were its tributaries. Yamuna, instead of flowing this way, was flowing this way. And Satluj was, instead of going towards Indus, it was actually towards, Ghaggar Hakra. So this must have been a very important river, huge amount of water. But then there were some tectonic imbalances, earthquake, right? And it seems that this may have shifted. This may have shifted. The course of rivers may have shifted to their current positions. And that again would have spelt doom for many of these cities which were established around this region, around this river. You get my point, right? You get my point here. So this is considered as the first chapter of our history, right? This is considered as the first chapter of our history. It will have a lot of, artifacts, but no script, right? The script has often, we really do not know much about script. We have discovered some signboard from Dholavira. Otherwise, we've just discovered some characters here and there. If you find sentences written, then it's easier to decode because you have much more data to work with, right? So you can do all your permutations and combinations. But if you just have few characters, it's that much more tough. Not only this, it seems that the script was Boostre Fodon. Boostre Fedon. What does that mean? That it means probably they used to write it in this manner, that they would begin from right to left, then they would go this way, then this way, then this way, and this way. So instead of keeping it fixed from one direction to another, they would rather keep it zigzag. This kind of scripts, very few in the world, very few in the world. They're called as a Boostre Fedon. Boostre Fedon. Right? Coming to the next chapter of our history. This again is very interesting, right? How so? Now we are going to talk about the Aryan phase, the Rigvedic phase. What do I mean? What do I mean here? What I'm trying to tell you here is that from Central Asia, Central Asian steppe region, right? Central Asian steppe region. What is Central Asian steppe region? Let me show it to you. I must be having a map here. Yeah. So Central Asian steppe region is basically this region. Black Sea, Caspian Sea, this region. This is Central Asian steppes. A lot of pastoral nomads, pastoral nomadic groups have existed here throughout the history. These are steppes, grasslands, right? So they also, we also find horses here. So they were able to domesticate horses pretty early on, and they used it to their advantage. And throughout our history, throughout our ancient and medieval history, these nomads have played a very important role. Right, every time people in these civilized parts such as India, China, they have become complacent. These tribes have come up and they have invaded, and they have completely overhauled the social structure, political structure. Right, so one of the earliest such examples, which is important here for us, is the uh, advent of a migration or invasion, whatever you want to call it, Aryans. Right. Uh, In fact, a lot of scholars believe that their invasion may have been one of the reasons behind the decline of the Harappan cities. Right? We will discuss about that as well. The point being here is that uh, yeah. Okay, so uh, these guys, they stayed probably somewhere around Black Sea, Caspian Sea region. Right, Black Sea, Caspian Sea region, that is where somewhere around they stayed. And they seem to why are they being called as Aryans? It's because they speaking the same language, some kind of a language which is proto Sanskrit. Right, I will be talking about it. Don't worry, don't worry. I don't unnecessarily need to confuse you at this state at this stage. But I want to tell you is that from Central Asia, these guys enter Indian subcontinent through Khyber Pass, through Western Himalayas. And it is not simply one set of migration which is going on. They carry on happening for hundreds of years. Right, it begins from around 1750 BCE, when several of these Aryan tribes or Vedic tribes — why am I calling them Vedic tribes? Because these are the people who are going to compose Vedas. Right, so these tribes, it is believed that they enter India from northwest. And between in the so when I say the second chapter of our history is the age of Aryans, then I'm prominently talking about this time period, 1500 to 500 BCE or 600, yeah, 600 BCE. I'm talking about this time period. Right, to make it slightly even better, I should probably be writing it like this: from 1700 to around 600 BCE. Right, this is known as the entire Aryan age or Vedic age. Now this in itself has been divided into two parts: early Vedic and later Vedic. Right, the early Vedic phase, it begins from 1700 and 1700 BCE, I imply, and it goes on till 1000 BCE. Right, this map is related with that. So during this time, as you can see, the Vedic tribes, right, they were mostly present in Punjab region, and they were present in Swat Valley. These are two areas which are associated in this early Vedic time period. This early Vedic period is also known as Rigvedic period. Why so? Because among all the Vedas, Rigveda is the oldest of all. And Rigveda was composed here. Now, Rigveda itself is not just one book. Rigveda is actually 10 books or mandals. Right, 10 mandals having shloks or richas, hymns, poems in worship of various early Vedic gods. So हमें उससे we get to know a lot about their society and their understanding, what kind of a people they were. Remember, Rigveda is considered to be the oldest. One more point which I would clarify here, which I should clarify here, is that remember this Rigveda, when I say Rigveda was composed, it was not written down as such. There's no script that we can find here. Right? It is still basically your oral transmission. There are families of priests, right, who are called as Brahmin, rishis, or whatever, right? So they are the ones who are memorizing it and transferring it to their son, their shishya, etc., etc. That's how they carry on. So Guru Shishya Parampara, if you see in kind of this kind of a rote learning, right, is very old, very old, very old. Interesting, interesting, interesting. I would call it rote learning, but yeah, probably it was required at that point of time, isn't it? Yeah, it was, isn't it? Yeah, to preserve all that information. Yeah. So this is your Rigvedic tribes which are present here in the your Punjab region. Right. This is also the time period, 1700 to 1000 BCE. They are still your primarily pastoral, nomadic. Pastoral means pastoral ka matlab hota hai bete, dependent upon animal, cattle rearing, etc. Cattle was the dominant form of wealth here. Situation changes. How does it change? Dekho, ye dekho. Situation changes here. This is the later Vedic age. This is the later Vedic age. This is 1000 to 600 BCE. During this time, a lot of these Aryan tribes, they start settling down. First of all, if you notice, they start migrating eastwards. Dekho yahan pe bana bhi hua hai, these arrows, later migrations. So they start migrating towards other regions. And several of these tribes, very interesting, several of these tribes, they not only migrate eastwards, they also settle down. And instead of being pastoral nomadic, now they become pastoral settled and agricultural. They start practicing primitive agricultural, basic agriculture. They start practicing it. They start settle down in the fertile I'm so sorry. They start settling down in that fertile ये देखो in regions में दोआब region में यहाँ पर जाकर के धीरे धीरे ये लोग settle down करने लगते हैं. And all the later Vedic literature would be composed here in this region between 1000 to 600 and later beyond as well. Right, that's how they are expanding during the 1000 to 600 BCE time period. The early tribes which settled, they are the ones who gave their names to territories such as Kuru, Panchal, Koshal. These are Videha. These were basically name of the tribes which settled into these areas. Right, and now, as they, this is something really interesting. I should briefly mention that as well, right? As we, transition, as people start settling down, during this time, a lot of changes take place. Wouldn't you agree? Their religion is gonna change. Beta, religion is immensely dependent upon economy. Right? Once your economy changes, once your means of livelihood change, your religion must evolve to cater to the change needs. Right? So initially when people were pastoral, people were nomadic, in that case, in those days, the religion was such where people would perform these huge sacrifices. Cattle and horses will be sacrificed. Because they're nomadic, so all these old animals, they're of no use, so it's better to sacrifice them to God and eat them. and make merry. And they would also love wine, somras. Right. So, but as people start settling down, I'm sure you would agree, once they start settling down, they start practicing agriculture. Now, just killing cattle which are old doesn't make sense, because those cattle can be used for transportation. Those cattle can be used for halki jotai, plow. They're used for drought purposes, drought purposes. You follow my argument. The point which I'm trying to tell you here is that now what we notice is, as these start settling down, as these tribes start settling down, their religion also starts changing, in the sense that many of these Brahmins, they start coming up with many complex rituals, complex sacrifices, such as Ashwamedh Yagya. Right, all these start coming up here in the later Vedic age. Right, the idea was to legitimize these newly emerging kingdoms and states, give them some kind of a divine legitimacy. Okay, okay. Dekho, suno. Remember, I am here just trying to give you a basic chronological understanding and regional understanding through these maps. These topics will be covered at their own proper pace. Right? Yeah, but I'll go slowly if you think I'm going faster. Right? Okay. So, So I'm saying that during this time, as these guys start settling down, many of these new kingdoms emerge for the first time in India. Right? They emerge for the first time here in North India. If you leave aside, Harappa, the northwest bit. So yeah, here in this Gangetic Plain, for the first time, it happens, it takes place. And during this time, we also notice that in the later Vedic literature, a lot of complicated sacrifices and rituals are also introduced. Right? The simple religion of early Vedic times is gone. And now there are so many complicated and expensive rituals which only the nobility can undertake. These are certain changes which take place. Right? I'm just giving you some very broad brush idea. Moving on, the next chapter of our history, the next big development that takes place is from around 500 BCE or from around 600 BCE, whatever you want to call it, is the age of Mahajanpads. Right? This goes on from around 600 BCE to around 320 BCE. This is where we say that historical period of India begins. This is the period which is also often called as early historical period. This is where you can say ancient India begins in one way. Why am I saying historical period? So as you can understand, from this phase onwards, from 4th century BCE onwards, 4th century BCE onwards, we start finding written records. We start finding written records in a script which has been called as Brahmi. We start finding Brahmi inscriptions in the subcontinent. Brahmi is a script which was deciphered in 1837 by a person known as James Prinsep. Right? James Prinsep. He is also the one who deciphered Kharoshthi. We'll talk about it. Okay, so this is known as age of Mahajanpads. Dekho, when we look at Rigveda, in Rigveda, the earliest Veda, the tribe is known as Jan, and the chief of the tribe is known as Rajan. During the later Vedic phase, when some of these tribes, some of these Jan, they start settling down, they come to be known as Janpad. These regions came to be known as Janpad. Now they had a territory. So of course, once the chief had a territory to rule, now he had a fixed source of revenue because people were practicing agriculture. So during the harvest time, he could demand some revenue. He could have his army, right? He could consolidate his power. You get my point? How it must have gone on, and led to evolution of state as people settle down. Right. So as the kings became, important, powerful. So these, when they settled down, when they had a territory, this entire territory came to be called as Janpad. By around 600 BCE, we start finding some textual references. Of how, some of these Janpads, they become really strong. They become stronger than the rest, and they are termed as Mahajanpads. Some Buddhist sources mention 16 Mahajanpads. Some mention 22 Mahajanpads. Primarily, this is the region that they exist. This is Gandhar, Kamboj, Ashmak. Ashmak was near Godavari. Right? This was the only one which was in the peninsular India. Then we have Avanti, Chedi, Magad, Ang, Vriji, Kashi, Mal, Koshal, Vats, Surasen, Panchal, Kuru, Matsya. Right? These were the big ones, 16 big Mahajanpads. Right? So what kind of a chemistry was present here? How did Magad here? See how small Magad began. And how it rose. I'm sure you would agree, right? Magad from Patliputra is going to emerge the biggest of them all. And it is going to establish the first empire of India under the great Nand. And then, of course, Mauryans are going to make it an all-India empire. Right? So Magad ka rise hame padhna hoga. We need to understand the Magad's rise when we are studying, this entire thing. And of course, during this phase one, another very important development which takes place, which I would discuss in detail, is emergence of Buddhism and Jainism. Because as I was telling you, right from later Vedic age itself, when people start settling down, when they left their pastoral nomadic lifestyle and they settled down, do you realize what has happened here? Their economy has changed. So the need which they have for religion also changes. They were not happy with whatever the Brahmanical Vedic religion was offering them. And we see as a result in Indo-Gangetic plain something which has been termed as a religious revolution. We are being told that hundreds of heterodox sects emerge in Gangetic Valley to challenge the Brahmanical orthodoxy and hegemony. because Brahmins have, they have completely, what should I say, dominated all the proceedings here. How? Because do you see, they were the ones who were organizing those wow, amazing sacrifices, and they were the ones who were giving divinity to the king. So king also gave them a lot of privilege. As a result, the Vaisya, right? This is where the four Varna system will also be mentioned, right? I should have mentioned it in the Rigveda itself, but so there are like four Varnas, Varna in the way ancient and medieval society was defined, right? Brahman, Kshatriya, and Vaishya and Shudra. So Vaishya and Shudra were denied any kind of social status. So they were not happy with the Brahmanical religion. And as people were settling down in this entire middle Gangetic Valley, तुम देख रहे हो ना, middle Gangetic Valley became quite heavily involved, or Magad is coming from middle Gangetic Valley. Middle Gangetic Valley is your Bihar region primarily, right? It's coming from that region, right? So we would look at it, why middle Gangetic Valley became so important, right? And we would, this entire the religious revolution which took place has been called as a Shraman movement. So we will talk about that as well. We will discuss the origination of Buddhism, Jainism. I'm sure you would agree, Buddhism and Jainism as a topic cannot be closed like that. They will continue. They have a very long history in India, so they will continue with us, right? Buddhism and Jainism, they're still one of the largest religions in the world. So their story cannot be just talked about here in this time phase. Their story goes on. But I'll introduce you to these topics here itself, right? Yeah. Couple of points that I should mention here. Iron, right? Iron, it is believed, emerges in around later Vedic age, around 1000 to 800 BCE. That is the range when it is introduced, both in the north as well as in the peninsular India, right? And initially, it is used only for warring purpose. But later, as time goes on, we start using iron-tipped plows as well. And this iron-tipped plow is used for making cultivation better. Isn't it? Because this iron-tipped plow can be used to turn the soil much better. So the micronutrients and nutrients will be, the topsoil will be better, right? You get my point, right? So now, all this must have led to surplus generation. Wouldn't you agree? All this must have led to surplus generation. This surplus must have been bartered and traded. Currencies emerge. Writing emerge. Right? And social classes emerge of wealthy merchants and traders. Gahapati and Nagar Shreshti, etc. Such kind of social stratas, classes start emerging. But they are being denied any kind of social status. All privileges are only for the top two Varnas. So in such a situation, as you can understand, right, there's like a popular revolution against Brahmanical orthodoxy. And 300 sects emerge. Buddhism and Jainism are simply the most successful of them all. Right, so we will understand those areas, those pointers. Very interesting phase, a very formative phase. A lot of internal trade goes on. Trade routes emerge. For the first time, we start finding reference to Uttar Path. This is Uttar Path. From here to Peshawar. ऐसे करके जाता है कुछ ये Uttar Path. right? This is the northern trade route, which starts finding mention from this age of Mahajanpads itself. Okay, moving on towards the next chapter of our entire course that we are going to look at is, of course, the Mauryan Empire from around 320 BCE to around 185 BCE. Notice one more thing. I would also like you to notice one more thing here. During this time, age of Mahajanpads, when we are around at 6th century BCE, all these Mahajanpads are here. Ye kya likha hai? This is Achaemenid, or the Persian Empire. They were our neighbors at this point of time. Right? They will also influence our culture in a big way. Persian influence, Achaemenid influence. Right? Their most famous king is called as, their most famous emperor is called as Darius the Great. And it is believed that Ashoka was inspired by Darius. You know, when it came to writing inscription, Darius was also, he also used to love writing inscriptions. His inscriptions are also very popular. I'll show you a couple of them, at least one I will show you, right? Darius, his inscriptions, and it is believed that Ashoka was inspired by him to write his own inscriptions. They have pretty much the same grammatical structure, right? So this is Achaemenid, or the Persian Empire. These are the ones who are going to later fight it out with Alexander. Right? If you guys have seen that movie called as 300, they show this fight between Persians and the Greeks. It pertains with this Achaemenid Empire. Of course, they have shown their own perspective, but you get the point. Achaemenid were a huge empire. They were a huge empire. Their empire extended from Indus to all the way till your Tigris and beyond. Tigris, Euphrates and beyond. Right? Ionian states tak ja karke, they even captured Greek region. Mediterranean Sea, immense, man, huge. Right? And they influenced Indian culture as well, but they influenced Mauryan art and culture as well. Right? So any which way, moving onwards, this is your Mauryan Empire during the time of Ashok. This is one map, but I would ask you to understand it in this way. This is a better map, right? To assume that Ashoka's rule was present across in a very, very uniform manner would be wrong. There were these huge pockets where Mauryan administration has, these were tribal areas of central India, Rajasthan, and of course, below your, in the far south, there was this land of Pallavs, sorry, not Pallavs, I'm so sorry. This was the land of Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas and Satyaputra, etc. Now, Ashoka has left a lot of inscriptions in Brahmi, pillar inscriptions, rock inscriptions, cave inscriptions, etc., right? And there he gives us very important information about who are residing on the other side as well. So that ways it is very helpful. That ways it is very helpful. So we will look at, Ashokan, we will look at Mauryan Empire, we will look at Ashokan Empire. We will understand, how, in what context Ashoka undertook Buddhism and what were the implications of it. How he started expanding Buddhism to far and across. He started sending embassies. Right? So this entire time period is known as Mauryan time period. This is the time period when Indian architecture makes a very important transition from using wood or timber to stone. This is also a very important aspect that you should keep in mind. I will highlight it in my class. Wood and timber, right? Wood and timber were very easily available here in the alluvial forests. So our structure, our architecture, the way it emerged, the way it originated, it used timber because it was easily available. So what? So the point being that now I'm sure you would agree, right? Every raw material will have some pros and some cons. So wood also has some pros and some cons. It's easy to carve, but its load carrying capacity is not that wonderful. That is why if you want to construct a wooden hall, you would need to construct a lot of pillars. Now think about this. Your sense of aesthetics is determined by your surrounding. Right? What you find pleasing, right? The kind of houses we live in, what pleases us, it depends upon the how our architecture has evolved over generations. During the time of Ashok, there's a transition because now there's iron, we are better equipped to sculpt stone. So there's a transition from wood to stone, from timber to stone. There's a transition. Artists start using stone. Ashoka constructs a lot of pillars, rock cut caves, a palace. But our definition of aesthetics was still linked with the timber style. That is one very unique thing about ancient Indian architecture, right? It kept on being influenced by the wooden architecture. Although the material was changed, but the sense of aesthetic remained the same. That is why you would notice in our caves, we would construct so many beautiful pillars and capitals and brackets. You do not need them. They do not have any structural application in, rock cut caves. Rock cut caves do not need pillars, but we will construct them because we like them. We find them beautiful. We will create wonderful brackets with apsara holding trees like that, bending their waist, and we would be like, wow, so beautifully carved, because that is what we find pleasing. You get my point, right? That's again something which is very fascinating about this entire thing, which we will discuss. How we will also talk about some stupa architecture, chaitya, vihar. We will discuss. These are the kind of things that I will be introducing you to here. Okay. Remember, Mauryan Empire was not under control of this region, right? They were not under control of this region. Sri Lanka, ancient name, you can note it down, was called as a Tamraparni. Tamraparni. One more point which I should probably just mention somewhere. 326 BCE, right? That's the year when Alexander invades India. He defeats Alexander. He is basically from Macedonia, right? And he unites all these Ionian states, and he invades the Achaemenid Empire in around 330 BC, and he destroys their capital, Persepolis. And he comes to Indus, and he says, this entire region is mine, because it was Achaemenids previously. I've defeated them, so now it is mine. Ruler of Gandhar, right? He surrenders. But then for several reasons, he was defeated as well. He had to go back, and then he dies. And then his empire is partitioned among his family and generals. The most powerful of it is called as Seleucid Empire. Ye dekho, ye raha. This was the neighbor of the Mauryan Empire. the Seleucids, right? We will also be talking about them. We'll also be talking about them, right? Okay, so yeah, this is the Seleucid Empire which will emerge, and it will also come in handy when we proceed ahead. Uh, is there any better map that I have? One second. All right. So yeah, this is the Mauryan India or Ashokan India at this point of time. Uh, there are a couple of rivers here, yeah, chalo, I'll talk about it when I have a map there, right? Northern Afghanistan के आसपास की कुछ नदियां हैं. चलो मैं बात करूंगा. Don't worry. I'll talk about it when I have the map. So yeah, this is more in India, right? Now we need to go to the next chapter. The next chapter of our history is called as Post-Mortem phase. Post-Mortem phase. This Post-Mortem phase is from around 220 BCE to around 250 CE or 300 CE, whatever you want to call it. This is slightly fluid. Uh, Ashoka dies in 230 BC. Ashoka dies in 230, around 230 BC. And after that, within 10 years, Mauryan Empire is disintegrated. Right, so this is why from around 220 BCE itself, I am calling it post-Mauryan times. Right, so we will now be studying the post-Mauryan times. Right, during the post-Mauryan times, what will happen is a couple of things actually. Couple of things. If this is the map of India, then one thing which will happen is some foreigners, tribes, and some foreign groups are going to enter Northwest, and they are going to establish some important, less important kingdoms, right? And some very important kingdoms, as well. On the other hand, in the Peninsula region, a couple of very powerful indigenous powers are going to emerge as well. So we will have to take care of both those aspects. We will first understand that who are these foreign groups. Again, people are coming from Central Asia, nomadic tribes, right? And there are coming some Indo-Greeks as well. Some Indo-Greek kings will come in and establish small, big kingdoms here in Northwest India. Right? They will be replaced by Scythians or Shakas, who will once again establish their own kingdoms. Different. Most of them will be gone. Most of them will be gone within a century. But they will establish one here, which is called as a Shakas of Saurashtra. And they will stay in power for quite some time. They will stay in power for 600 years. Around 500 years, let's call them 500 years. They will stay in power in Gujarat, Saurashtra region for 500 years. They are known as Shakas of Saurashtra. Right after this, there will be some Parthian, Indo-Parthian kings as well who will come in. And finally, there will be one tribe which will be Kushan or Yuzi or Tocharian, right? They will enter the picture, and देखो ये shakas of Saurashtra. This is shakas of Mathura, but they will be gone pretty quickly. These are Indo-Parthia, but they were mostly, relevant for us in Central Asia, not in the subcontinent. In India, they played some very minor role. And finally, Kushans will come here and they will do this. They will do this. This is Kushan's empire, Kanishka's empire. They will unite North India to Central Asia. They will unite North India to Central Asia, and Uttar Path will be united to Silk Route. What was Silk Route? Silk Route was a trade route. I'll discuss it, don't worry, right? This was a route which was being used for trading luxury goods between ancient Roman Empire on the Mediterranean and Han, Chinese Empire. Land route se chal raha tha. So abhi, now this fellow Kanishk, he manages to unite India's trade routes, Uttar Path, directly, and control that entire Central Asia region. And this is the time period, post-Mauryan age, when India sees immense prosperity. Great amount of trade happens. This is where, all those regional styles of sculpture will emerge, such as Mathura, Gandhar, Amaravati, etc. During this time, monsoon was discovered. Monsoon was discovered, as in what do I mean? Dekho samjho. Monsoon was known to local traders. It must have been known forever, right? They must have understood and noticed it for quite some time. But in 1st century CE, do you see in post-Mauryan age? That means during the time of Christ's birth, around that time, somewhere around that time, a Roman sailor known as Hippolus, he discovered monsoon for the Romans. He discovered that in this Indian Ocean, there's a seasonal reversal of wind. And we can use it to quicken the pace of travel and better plan our travel. So now this reduced the entire travel time to half. And a lot of direct trade started happening between Mediterranean and Indian Ocean via the Red Sea. And a lot of ports were seen here on the west coast right till here. Right? And we have a lot of Roman accounts, books which mention these ports, their prosperity. And we will study all that as well. A lot of the Buddhist caves were constructed here in these Western Ghats. Right? These were Buddhist chaityas and viharas which were constructed here in Western Ghats near the passes, mountain passes. Why? All these merchants and traders from across the Deccan and North would come to these passes where all the Roman ships would come laden with gold and silver, and they would sell their stuff to these guys who would sail back. And these traders, they would stay at these chaityas and viharas who will double up as rest houses. And these traders would give very rich patronage, donations to these chaityas and viharas. And Buddhism will thrive. Post-Mauryan age is the time when, stupa architecture and cave architecture blossoms. And not only because of royal patronage, let me tell you this, not only because of royal patronage, but because of patronage by people like us, you and me, in their individual capacity. Right? So yeah, this is the post-Mauryan age that you should be aware about till around 300 CE, Common Era. 300 CE. ये देखो, now we are heading towards the Gupta age. Now we are heading towards the Gupta age, right? The next chapter is Gupta age. This is 320 to 550 CE. Right, 320 to 550 CE, 320 to 550 CE, ये गुप्ता एज कहलाती है बेटे. इनको भी जरा सा देख लेते हैं एक बार, आओ भाई. So this is Samudragupta, right? 375. This is Samudragupta. This is the core region. The pink one is the core region. Pataliputra was his capital, and these are the areas in which he expanded his kingdom. Right? I'm sure you guys, probably some of you would be aware about something which is known as Prayag Prasasthi. It is in Allahabad, right? And there we find Prayag Prasasthi, we find mention, we find a eology, or a praise, eology or a praise of Samudragupta, written by his friend and court poet Hari Sen. Hari Sen has composed it, right? It is written in wonderful, exquisite Sanskrit. You know, our story of languages, script in itself is so wonderful. I'll probably definitely, in fact, talk about it at least for half an hour. I'll, be mentioning something on them, right? So that you understand. Anyway, not now, later on, definitely. So once we are done with ancient, medieval, and art and culture, then I'll probably just talk about them briefly. So Hari Sen, right? Hari Sen writes this Allahabad Prayag Prasasthi, and where he tells us that what are the victories that he has achieved, how great he was, how wonderful he was, etc., etc., etc. Right? So do you see what he has done? He has gone from Pataliputra and he has captured pretty much the entire eastern coast till Kanchi, and then came back. This is Samudragupta for you. Right? And do you also notice at this point of time, who are present here in Saurashtra? These are your shakas of Saurashtra. They are called as Western satraps because they introduced the satrap system here in India. I will talk about it. Darna mat in cheezon se. I'm just giving you a teaser, right? I'm just giving you a teaser here. Picture ka end malum rahega, samajh mein rahega, so we can, just walk through the entire thing. Don't worry, right? So Western satraps, these are your shakas of Gujarat. So do you see they were still surviving here till 375? They will be finally defeated in 400 CE. ये देखो 400 CE by this is basically your Chandragupta Vikramaditya, Chandragupta the second. He is the one who defeats them in around 400 CE, and he further expands the kingdom, the Gupta Empire. Right? He also enters into a matrimonial alliance with the Vakatakas of Maharashtra. Vakatak. Yahi log hain bete jo they will be responsible, for the construction of Ajanta, one of the branches of Vakatak. Right? Now, Chandragupta, Vakataks were very powerful. Remember, they were controlling this entire Western. They must have been very prosperous, right? Trade ho raha tha, recall. So now the point which I'm trying to tell you here is that the Chandragupta the second, he actually, entered into a matrimonial alliance with this fellow, the Vakataks. And then the Vakatak king died, and the daughter of Chandragupta became the regent. So as you can see, this must also have been more or less in their control. So they became very powerful. They are known for issuing exquisite gold coins. Have a look. Enough said, isn't it? We will talk about it. During their time, you are probably aware, this is also known as, the Gupta Age is also known as the classical age, right? A lot of developments take place, paintings, architecture, performing arts, their theory is written, their theory is compiled, composed, written down finally in the Gupta script. Gupta script was an evolution of Brahmi script. So, right. Uh, a lot of influence was also, I should be, one more thing which I should be mentioning here is, of course, uh, 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 right. So this is your Chera kingdom. This was your Pandya kingdom, and this is your Chola kingdom. This is how they existed, right? This is Chera. This is your Pandya, and this was your Chola in this region of far south, right? These were the, remember, these were not the only chiefs here. They were not kings at this point of time. In the early part, right, till the Gupta age, till the beginning of Gupta age, they are not kings. They're not to be called as kings. They're primarily tribal chiefs, right? So we will study about them as well. We will see how they also got prosperous because of that entire Indo-Roman trade which was going on here, right? Remember? So they also got profited a lot. And this is where we will study, another chapter is this is called as Sangam Age, isn't it? Sangam Age. We will talk about far south, their society, developments there. We will discuss Sangam literature. We will understand Tamil society. Very interesting, very interesting, very interesting, right? Their texts, their epics. We will need to cover that as well, right? But once we are done with that entire Sangam age and Gupta age is finished there, I will move, of course, to the the Gupta Empire. The Gupta Empire itself, it starts declining from around 400 and after 455 it starts declining, right? After 467, sorry. That means somewhere around after 470 it starts declining. Why? The primary reason is the invasion of white Huns or Hephthalites, right? This is where people such as Toraman and Mihirkul, they invade Gupta Empire. Until the time of Chandragupta the second's son and grandson, Kumar Gupta and Skandagupta, I think is his name, right? Till that time, everything is okay. But once Skandagupta dies in 467, now the situation becomes tough, and Huns are absolutely, they kind of just disintegrate the Gupta Empire, as you can see, right? They reduce their area of influence immensely, and by 550, Guptas are reduced to a minor power. Right? Hunas in turn are defeated by, a person who is known as Yashodharman. इसका बात हम लोग जिक्र बाद में करेंगे. कुछ finer points, these are certain finer points which I will be discussing later as we proceed. These Huns, many of these were defeated, killed. A lot of them stayed here, settled down, and got assimilated with local population. Many of them did that way. This is 550 CE, right? This is when Guptas have entered, Guptas have gone, and there's a new dynasty which has been called as later Guptas. No association with the actual Guptas, nothing at all. You get my point? And no association with your one second, right? मैं दवा खा लूं. So there's absolutely no association with Guptas of early times and Guptas of this later period. Nothing. And their area, as also you can see, right, was limited to Pataliputra. Now, the point that probably, one second, just hold on, please. Okay, so this is India around 550 CE. देख रहे हैं आप? Some smaller powers here. Saurashtra is gone. Some powers here that you should keep in mind. Harsh emerges. Now, the point which I should be making here, right, rather than getting into the detail, the point which I should be making here is that this is the time when people say that medieval Indian history begins. And I also kind of agree with this view. Right? Because this is where you can see there is a disintegration of political authority. Now there will be different regional kingdoms who will be very happy in their regional spaces. They'll be very happy in their own regional spaces. And they will rule these regional areas, and they will develop those regional cultures, literature, language, etc. They will patronize those areas. Right? This is the paramount definition. This is the most important definition of medieval society. Disintegration of political authority. There will be more than one important players. Not like ancient India. In ancient India, you recall what was going on? Yeah, don't worry. I have switched it off intentionally. So what I was saying was, no, just keep listening, and looking at the maps. So in ancient, as I was telling you, right, in ancient, there were, we hear of people such as Mauryans, right? We hear of people such as Guptas. Now, these are guys who are claiming paramountcy over entire subcontinent, isn't it? But in medieval times, in early medieval times, this is a new time, this is a new term which I'm using. Early medieval times is typically from around 550 to around 1200. Right? So during the early medieval times, we really do not find many examples of people who are trying to create a pan-India empire, or even claiming to be ruling the entire subcontinent. They are happy in their own regional spaces. They have their own powerful kingdoms. Many of them are very powerful, but they are not in a position to go and create a large-scale subcontinent level power. Right? Things change for a while. Things actually change for a while when the Pushyabhutis, right? The Pushyabhutis, as luck would have it, under Harsh, they once again unite North India for a brief period. This is where Empire of Harsh was united. Right? He attempts to once again unite North India under one political leadership. But by 647, this attempt also failed. And even during the time of Harsh, even when Harsh was present, even during his time, I must tell you, something. Even during the time of Harsh, uh, there were other very powerful players in Indian polity as well at that point of time, right? What do I mean? I mean something like this. Whenever Harsh tried to expand eastwards, he was unable to do so because there was a very powerful king here who is called as Shashank. Shashank. Similarly, when he tried to attempt to expand beyond Narmada, he was then defeated by the Chalukyas, Pulakesin too. So do you see, this is the most important identification of a medieval society. At one point of time, there will not be a single hero. There will be multiple great kings who would be dominating different regions. So you have to kind of look at several developments at the same time and keep following it. Right? Also notice this port. This port was also very important. Tamra Lipti in Bay of Bengal. Right from ancient times. Uttarpath originated from here. Tamra Lipti to Peshawar. Right? Pallavs, again, Pallavs emerge in 550. The Pallavs, and they go on till 900 CE. The Pallavs, I must tell you this, right? The Pallavs, they are considered to be the first kingdom of far south. I'll explain to you why this is so. But it is believed that emergence of state takes a very long time in far south. And before Pallavs, their society was organized on a tribal principle. Chiefs were there. Kingdoms, their armies, a regular taxation system was not present. All that comes with Pallavs. So Pallavs are considered as the first of the such dynasties, which establish a rule over far south. Right? So there's a very interesting dynamics between Chalukyans and Pallavs as well. These are Chalukyans of Badami. These are Chalukyans of Badami. This is their core area. This is Revati Dweep. This is the name of Goa. Old name of Goa was Revati Dweep. Right? There was a very important dynasty here, Maitrak. They were, they were established in somewhere around 475 CE as Gupta's weakened, so their control over Gujarat weakened, and Maitraks were established. Right, the Maitraks were established. They were very important, and their capital was Walabhi. Right, where there was a very good university as well, ancient university as well. Interesting. Chaliye, moving on. What I'm trying to tell you, remember, this is start of medieval India. This is the start of medieval India. Right, these are few of the important players that you should keep in mind. Right, there's also somebody who's known as Kala Churis of Mahishmati. Mahishmati was a town just opposite to Ujjain on the banks of Narmada. Right, Mahishmati. This was also one of the capitals, right, of kya kehte hain inka, Ujjain ka, no, sorry, Avanti ka, when Avanti was present here, the Avanti, the Mahajanpad, right? So it had two capitals, Ujjain and Mahishmati. So now we see Kalachuris of Mahishmati are also, being told as a small minor power here present in 6th and 7th centuries. Right? These are some of the important names that you should keep in mind. These are some of the important names that you should keep in mind here. I did not tell you something very important. I will go back and tell you. You remember I was telling you about post-Mauryan era, and I told you there were several foreigner groups who came and entered Indian subcontinent. I gave you some examples as well, Kushan and all, you remember? And I told you that in Peninsular India, there were a couple of indigenous powers. Right? I should mention them. One is King Kharvel. He comes from Kaling in around 160 BC. I'm sorry, मैं थोड़ा पीछे जाके बात कर रहा हूँ, post-modern era की, please do not get confused, right? And in around 220 BCE, we also notice Satavahanas of Deccan. Let me go back on the map and show you. Yeah, this is. Yeah. So do you see, when there were Shakas here, Pehlavas here, there is also Satavahanas here. Do you see how much region they are covering? They were, at one point of time, they were controlling region as far as Sanchi. At Sanchi, they have constructed the wonderful gateways, the torrents. They are credited with it. And this is the Kaling dynasty, the Mahameghavan of Kharvel. He was also very powerful, very powerful. Right? So these are a couple of indigenous powers that I should mention. Right? They emerge in the post-Mauryan times. From post-Mauryan times, यहाँ पर they have been shown as Andhra. This is another name. They were also called as Andhra Putra. Satavahanas, they were also called as Andhra Putra. Their capital was Paithan. This is its ancient name was Pratishthan, right? Pratishthan. In modern days, it is called as Paithan, right? In Maharashtra. So, right, keep it in mind. They were also called as Andhra. And these, of course, are the Shakas of Saurashtra. After this, we move to the entire discussion about Gupta Age. I showed you the coin and etc. The Hunas. And then I was talking about Harsh and how he was challenged and what it means to be in medieval times, right? As you can see. There's a disintegration of political authority. There's a disintegration of political authority. So moving on. Just taking you towards the next few developments, introducing you to next few important players. Somewhere around 711 CE, some very interesting development takes place. In fact, I should begin my story in this manner. That in early 7th century, somewhere around 610 CE, Islam emerges in Arabian Peninsula. Right? Islam emerges in Arabian Peninsula. Mecca is the town, right? Mecca and Medina, these are towns on the western side of Arabian Peninsula. And there one prophet, Muhammad, right? He is credited with coming up with the precepts of this this great religion. And I mean, in medieval times, this Islam is going to be one major variable in the equation across the history of a world, right? And India is no exception. The way they expanded, there are so many theories. The way other civilizations, other religions simply succumbed to the forces of Islam. They have also been explained to different degrees by different people. But the point which I'm trying to make here is that by 632 CE, Prophet had died, right? Muhammad had died, and without leaving an ear. And as a result, there was, all these, remember, Islam comes from Arabian Peninsula. And at this point of time, Arabian Peninsula was a land of nomads, right? Nomads. So tribes. So they operated on the basis of assemblies, just like Aryans operated on the basis of Sabha, Samiti, etc. Right? So they also had their assemblies. So they chose caliphs, right? The first 4 caliphs are called as Pious Caliphs or the Rashidun Caliphs. Rashidun, Rashidun, because they were contemporary of Muhammad, right? And during this time onwards, Islam starts expanding beyond Arabian Peninsula. They start reaching towards Syria, Eastern Mediterranean, right? That region, and towards Persia. And they capture all this region. During this time, in around 700 and, I'm so sorry. So this is basically 632 to 675, right? This is the Pious Caliphs, the first 4 caliphs. After this emerges the Umayyad Caliphate. So basically, the caliph system, it becomes a sort of monarchy. If I am a caliph, my son will become the caliph. So that kind of a thing emerges, right? Umayyad Caliphate emerges, and Umayyad Caliphate in 711, they send an expedition, both by land as well as by navy, to Sindh under Muhammad bin Qasim. He invades the Chach dynasty of Sindh, and he defeats them and captures this entire Sindh region, and Islam gets a foothold in Indian subcontinent from 8th century CE. Right? 8th century CE itself. Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting, very interesting. They kept on trying to expand further beyond it, but they were stopped by many of these so-called Rajput rulers, such as Gurjar, Pratihar, Tank, etc., etc. A lot of them. In fact, we'll talk about them when time is correct. But yes, okay. There are Chalukyas here, Pallavs here. All right. There are Eastern Chalukyas. Dekho bete, please do remember, this is a very important dynasty of medieval times, Chalukyas, right? Their original one is Chalukyas of, I think I should just talk about it, right? For 2 minutes. Abhi kar dete hain, to theek hi rahega shayad. Yeah. So the original parent house is Chalukyas of Badami or Vatapi. Vatapi was the ancient name. Karnataka it is in, right? They are from 550 to 750, right? After this, we also have Western Chalukyas and Eastern Chalukyas. That will come later, right? We have Eastern Chalukyas, okay? And we also have Western Chalukyas, who are also known as Chalukyas of Kalyani, right? These are 2 very important houses, right? These are 2 very important houses which will play a very important role throughout medieval history of Peninsula, right? So we'll try and keep them in mind, okay? There are some minor houses as well, right? Chalukyas of Gujarat, Lata Chalukyas. I will mention them when need arises, as and when the need arises, right? देखो ना, ये Eastern Chalukyas, just place them here. देखो, this is where they were. They are also called as Vengi Chalukyas because Vengi was their capital. They were in the Krishna Godavari Delta. That's where they were placed out. I'm really sorry. That was not my intention. My intention is just to give you some very broad ideas. I'm sorry if I have got into too many details, man. That was not my idea. My idea was just to so that you do not get unnecessary, uh, I'm sorry if it became don't worry. Try and absorb as much as you can. Most of this, whatever, in fact, everything which I have told you will be repeated much more slowly and carefully. Right? The idea was not to overwhelm. The idea was to give you a bird's eye view. The bird's eye view can be overwhelming because I'm giving you a lot of information very quickly. I'm trying to summarize a lot of things. I'm sorry. I thought it will help. Some of you can be confused. Apologies, real apologies, man. That was never the intention. Right? And if you will, I promise, if you will listen to it, it is not as confusing. Don't get caught up in the names and proper nouns. Right? We can do without them as well for the time being. Right? Let me just quickly wrap it up. I will not, stop at this point of time. I'll finish all these maps here, and these maps, this presentation, you will get it. I'll share the drive, and you can keep looking at these maps whenever you feel like. Right? So moving on, मैं थोड़ा सा बात को और आगे बढ़ा रहा हूँ. I'm just taking it slightly ahead, and this is the map which is it is showing you India between 750 to 900 CE. Between 750 to 900 CE. During this time, we are being informed that there was a tripartite struggle. There was a three-way struggle. There were three major players here. Right? Gurjar Pratihar, right? Palas, Gurjar Pratihar were present here, in the central, eastern Rajasthan and central India. Palas were present. Their core area was in eastern India. And then we have another very important power here from Deccan. This is Rashtrakoot. The Rashtrakoot. These Rashtrakoot, they were one of the four of the most powerful empire in the world of the time. In terms of their army, in terms of their military strength, in terms of their prosperity, they were one among the four most prosperous and most powerful of the empire across the globe. This is how Arabian sources describe Rashtrakoot Empire. So we will, of course, understand the nuances, how they were fighting over Kannauj, what went on there. We would also try and see a couple of important points there. Right? These are the Palas who are going to establish your universities of, Buddhist vihar such as Vikramshila, Udanta Puri. Right? These viharas will be established. Okay? And Gurjar Pratihar, of course, they will be one who will be, stopping a lot of invasions, Arabian invasions, which will be going on in towards the Gangetic Doab region. They would face most of that, right? They would stop most of that. The Arabian sources describe Gurjar Pratihar as the biggest foe of Islam, biggest enemy of Islam, the Gurjar Pratihars. Okay. This is between 900 to 1200. This is the time period that I am looking at. This is the map that you should be looking at, 900 to 1200 CE. This is when the imperial Cholas rise. This is where the imperial Chol, they rise. Right? Their capital is Tanjore or Tanjavur. Right, and they rise from here, and they do something like this. I mean, this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal. One of their king, who is called as Rajendra Chol, he does a Samudragupta in reverse. You remember what was Samudragupta's achievement? He went all the way to Kanchi. He starts from Kanchi. He starts from Kanchi and Thanjavur. He starts from Kanchi and he goes all the way to Ganga and comes back. Right? This is around 1020 CE. Not only this, he also gets the title Gangai Kon the Chola. That means the Chol who conquered Ganga. Right? Not only this, ye bhi socho bachche, dekho, they also, this fellow, he also invaded this Sumatra, Java, and Malay region, Southeast Asia, archipelago region. Because they wanted to dominate the Indo-China trade, which was going on through this Strait of Malacca. Spice ka bahut tagda trade chal raha tha, spice trade. China consumed a lot of spices. So these guys wanted to control it, and these spices were coming from Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka and Malabar. So they wanted to capture this entire region, and they managed to defeat this Sri Vijaya Empire, which was a Buddhist empire. Again, it was a Buddhist empire. So one more aspect that we need to cover, and we will, is how Indian influence spread to these regions. Do you know this, that in Cambodia, there's this temple called as Angkor Wat. It was built in 12th century CE. It was a Vishnu temple, later converted to Buddhist temple. It's a unique example of how Indian culture has influenced these regions. And you know what? It is the world's largest religious monument. And not only this, if you look at Cambodia's official flag, their logo is that temple. So we will also need to study those connects. I promise I will also, talk about that aspect as well. Right? मैं थोड़ा ज़्यादा शायद फैल जाता हूँ. I'm sorry, but I think you guys should be aware, should know all this, even if in a very brief way you can know all this. I think you guys will be able to use this information, connect it to international incidents, make better sense, write better answers, everything, right? And please do not ever consider this entire information which I'm sharing it with you, this is coming from NCERT. Ye mat samajhna that I am doing it, nothing, everything which I'm saying is coming from NCERT. This is why I'm telling NCERT is so loaded. Everything is coming from there itself, right? So we will discuss all this as well. This is Chola Empire and how they managed to rise. And when Cholas are present here, they are being challenged. From Maharashtra, they are being challenged, Maharashtra and Karnataka region, by Western Chalukyas. Now we see Western Chalukyas. They are also known as Chalukyas of Kalyani. In dono ke beech mein, they will constantly fight. And because of this continuous warfare, they will finally, both of them will weaken in around 1200. And they will further disintegrate into several minor powers. Meanwhile, this is how North India was going on. North India was divided into these so many as Gurjar Pratihar kingdom. It just fragmented. And there are so many Rajput kingdoms emerge. These Rajputs were people of mixed origin. Hunas and Jats and different, all the foreign groups that have come to North. Right? They were of mixed origin. And they became politically more and more important. Because they started, playing important role against the expansionary tendencies of Islam. Chauhans, Tomar, Gehdaval, Paramar, Kalachuri, they all become important now. This is 1000 to 1200 I'm talking about. right? This is where Ghazni, Mahmud of Ghazni is going to enter, and he's going to come up with his raids, 17 raids against Somnath temple including. He will take so much of wealth out of India. Right? Once that is out of the picture, we will look at Ghurid invasions, right? We will look at Ghurid invasions as well. This is how the Ghurid Sultanate or the Shans Bani Sultanate, Muhammad Ghurb jo banayenge. This is how it will look like. We will see under what circumstances it will be created. And finally, in 1206, when he dies, Muhammad Ghuri, how Delhi Sultanate is established. We will look at Delhi Sultanate from 1206 to 1526. 320 years we will look at. Right? We will look at all the 5 dynasties, their important rulers, their cultural achievements, their administration, etc., etc. Right? After this, Delhi Sultanate starts, Delhi Sultanate, if you see, it starts disintegrating as well. Somewhere around 1340s, it starts disintegrating. Right? And that is when we notice formation of empires such as Vijayanagar and Bahmani in the Peninsula region. Right? So we will talk about that as well. 1337 to 1565 and 1347 to 1527. These are some date lines. This is Bahmani and this is Vijayanagar. Initially, Bahmani was all combined into one. Bahmani Sultanate, a very powerful Sultanate of Deccan. But gradually, because of internal court factional politics that I will touch upon, they got broken down into these 5 Deccani Sultanates, which were later taken over by Mughals, right? One by one, they were taken over by Mughals. This is Vijayanagar, right? Below river Tungabhadra, Raichur, Doab. This is Krishna River, and this is Tungabhadra River, right? So this was the borderline. Below this, everything was Vijayanagar, including Sri Lanka at times. Right, this is Vijayanagar Empire. This is where Krishna Dev Rai will emerge. This is where the Dravidian temple architecture will reach its zenith. Right, the Dravidian architecture, which began with Pallavs. You remember I told you Pallavs were the first kings to emerge from far south. So they are responsible for transitioning from wood to stone in far south, the architecture. In north, it was done by Ashok. In south, it is being done by Pallavs. So earliest rock cut caves, etc. come up. This is known as Dravidian architecture, which culminates, which betters itself into during the Chola time when grand temples are built, and it reached its zenith, most developed form under Vijayanagar, Krishna Dev Rai and his rule. When grand temples were built at their capital, which was Vijayanagar. Right? Later, Vijayanagar was the capital, the city of Vijayanagar was burnt down by the combined army of all these Bahmani, ex-Bahmani Deccani Sultanates. Right? Whatever are the remains of the city of Vijayanagar are called as Hampi. They are present in Karnataka. Right? A UNESCO World Heritage Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site it is. Okay. Finally, this is, this was the Sultanate of Delhi. It got reduced to such an extent, as you can see, right? Vijayanagar, all these Deccani Sultanate, then Malwa got independent, Gujarat got independent, Rajput Confederacy under Rana Sanga of Mewar. Right? Bengal is independent. Bengal Sultanate is established. So as you can see, the Delhi Sultanate got truncated. And this fellow, Rana Sanga of Mewar, of Rajput Confederacy, he contacted Babur's kingdom of Kabul to invade Delhi. He thought that Babur will invade, raid, plunder, and go back. But Babur stayed, and this is how things went on after that, isn't it? This is how things went on after that. This purple shade is a better map hai ek mere paas. This is a better map, right? This is a better map. This is a slightly better map if you see. This, yeah. This green portion indicates expansion during Akbar. This is till Humayun. All these maps will make much more sense, I'm sure, as we proceed. There's also the Sur intergenum when Sher Shah Suri comes in briefly between Humayun and Akbar. We will talk about that as well. This is a world map. I thought I will have it here. A regional physical world map. It will be, don't worry, Namisha, it will all be discussed. And by the way, I'm done. This is all I had in mind. This is all I had in mind to discuss. This is all I had in mind to discuss, right? When it comes to this map, this is all I had in mind to talk about. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Shoot your questions right now. Shoot your questions right now before I begin something else. Any questions? Go ahead. These slides will be absolutely fine. These slides will be absolutely fine. Any other questions which you may have, any other doubt which you may have regarding the general history, I would also be open to all those doubts. Ashwini, anything associated with history optional, please call me or email me. Right? This will not be correct, place. I'm sure you would agree, right? The Harappan civilization, if you see, it was trading with to put it simply, it was trading with the Mesopotamians, right? The Mesopotamians, the one between Sumer, the one between Tigris and Euphrates, right? So Mesopotamia, if you see, it was a region, right? So this region at this point of time was being dominated by Sumerians, right? So we can say their capital was the city of Ur, U-R, right? So they were trading with the city of Ur. Mesopotamian civilization. Persian Gulf cities, the cities in Persian Gulf. We have discovered Indus seals from there. Indus dices have also been discovered from these places. Indus dices, right? Uh, can somebody please help Ashwini with my contact number? Thank you so much. And yeah, the slides and the notes. Okay, yeah, we can definitely talk about that. अभी बता देते हैं, रुको. bit.do/colaveri. So yeah, access this drive, Google Drive, right? It will have certain useful presentations for you to begin with, right? Why does the Indus civilization is named as a Harappan civilization, right? That's a fair question. That's a very fair question. I should start my discussion actually with this. Indus civilization, if we see, would imply that this entire civilization was dependent upon Indus River, right? And that would be wrong to say it like that. Because although we notice that in the case of other other old Bronze Age civilizations such as Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Chinese, they are dependent upon one river. But just because it has happened in their case, that does not imply that it will happen in our case as well. When Britishers discovered a couple of sites here in your Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were discovered in the vicinity of Indus and its tributaries, they were quick to pounce upon. They did not give it much thought. They thought, just like they were spread, Mesopotamian and Egyptian and Chinese. Chinese actually was discovered slightly later, but yeah, when they understood, they thought, just the way they were present around rivers, they would also be present around one main river. But as research went on, as people expanded their research, they realized that it isn't so. And the area which it covers, it nears around 1 lakh square kilometer. Right, the area which is given, right? So if you see, right, this is pretty much 1/3 of the area of India, modern day India. How can we say that it was dependent upon one river? Now, pretty soon evidence emerged that there was another river which is called as a Ghaggar Hakra river, which was present. And as research went on, as archaeological excavation went on, they found out that the core region of this civilization, the core region of this civilization was, how do they define the core region? The core region would be that region where the most dense settlement pattern is found. Most amount of people are living. So they realized that the core area seems to be around this Ghaggar Hakra river rather than Indus river. So then they said that we should probably call it Ghaggar Hakra Valley Civilization. But then they started realizing that it is spread into such far away regions. For example, how far away, you ask? I will try and tell you how far away. See, on the western side, it is the easternmost that we have site that we have discovered is Sutka Jendor. This is near Pakistan-Iran border, Baluchistan, right? Pakistan-Iran border, Sutka Jendor. The northernmost site that we have discovered is Shortugai. This is in northern Afghanistan, yeah. It was a trading outpost. We have also discovered Manda in Jammu, right? The southernmost, the map here doesn't show it. It is Daimabad or Daimapur, one of these two names. Daimabad hai shayad, haan, Daimabad. Yeah, Daimabad. Daimabad in Maharashtra. North Maharashtra, Daimabad. Right? And if you see the easternmost again is not shown here in this map. The easternmost site is Alamgirpur in western UP. So do you realize the east-west and north-south expansion is huge? This is almost 1/3 in terms of area, it is almost 1/3 of the modern day India. If you combine the area of Mesopotamia and Egypt together, even then it will not be as large as Harappa. So in such a situation, it will be very stupid of us to just call it through the name of one river valley because we are using that notion there. Don't you think so? That will be wrong. So realizing this mistake, now people have they've started preferring to call it by the name of Harappan Civilization. Why Harappan Civilization? Because Harappa was the first site which was discovered. You remember I told you Nevasan, because Nevasan was the first site. So this is also, one tradition which field of archaeology follows. So Harappan Civilization iska naam pad gaya. And I think it's a decent enough name, right? Decent enough name. Right? This is one map which we can probably keep in mind here. Daimabad, okay. Indus Valley Civilization or Harappan Civilization, they did have trading relations with people in down south as well. Whether they were direct or indirect, that cannot be mentioned. That cannot be, we cannot be sure of that. But yes, there were definite connections, trade related connections here which were going on. देखो, this is the Ghaggar Hakra river. यहाँ पे बहुत अच्छे से बनाया है. You can actually see it. This is the Ghaggar Hakra river. No, I'm so sorry. This is Indus river. I'm so sorry. Have they shown Ghaggar Hakra? No, they haven't. They haven't. They have. They have. ये घग्गर हाकरा रिवर यहाँ पर उन्होंने लिखाया है थोड़ा सा. हाँ, थोड़ा सा. Okay, so anyway, जैसा मैं आपको बता रहा था कि that's a good question, Bikram. which is the westernmost place. The westernmost place, all right. Sutka Jen Dor, Sutka Jen Dor. This is Sutka Jen Dor, right? Sutkagendor, Sutka Dor. Uh, why did it begin in these regions and why not other regions? I'm sure you would agree there must have been a variety of factors involved here. The animals which were domesticated, the crops which were domesticated. You understand what is domestication? Domestication implies देखो, you know, people must have figured it out. People must have figured it out that if we throw away some seeds, plants grow. This they figured out pretty early on. That if we throw some seeds or if we bury some seeds, once we come back to them after some time, after some months, plants and trees will grow. But this cannot be taken as a start of agriculture. Start of agriculture implies a domestication of species. When you start taking wild species, wild varieties of plants and animals, and you start choosing which one to plant because you think it is more useful for you, and you start crossbreeding as well, inbreeding as well, this is known as domestication. So if you see all these things, these wheat, rice, etc., they were all initially found in wild varieties as wild grass. Humans started using them and domesticating them. This is precisely what we did with cattle. This is precisely what we did with dogs. Over generations, we domesticated them. This was no natural evolution. This was man-induced evolution. Because these crops, these animals were much more useful to us in this way. Right? So depending upon the availability of these crops, these animals in different regions, their wild varieties, their domestic varieties, their weathers, right? These regions, became important. Everybody had their own individual set of things which they could do. For example, just when in 7000 BCE, Mehergarh is, coming up at Mehergarh, and plus in West Asia, we find wheat being cultivated, wheat cultivation. In in India, in Uttar Pradesh, Belan River Valley, right? One Neolithic site has been found called Dihiva, which indicates evidence of rice cultivation from 7000 BCE. But Koldiva is not able to evolve into and produce itself and result into a proper civilization or urbanization or surplus at all. Why? Again, we do not know. We cannot comment on it. But yeah, but what we can say is there are a multitude of factors which are at play here. As to the second part of your question, that what was going on in the other parts of the world, mostly inhabitable, it was not habitable. Wherever people were present, they were mostly into primitive stages. They were mostly into hunting and gathering, that kind of activities. And yeah, that's how things were. Yeah. This is Ghaggar Hakra. This is Ghaggar Hakra. Aryans related to Mesopotamia. Uh, they are not associated with the Mesopotamia, I believe. Yeah, in a sense, you can say to Anatolia they are, right? I'll talk about it. Don't worry. वो Hittites और Mitanni का एक connection है. मैं बता दूंगा उसके बारे में. परेशान नहीं होने का. Right. कुछ इस टाइप का बन जाएगा शायद. I think if you see, oh, I'm so sorry. Probably we can think of it like this or like this, and ऐसे करके कुछ एक, yeah, probably a triangular area can be constructed. Yeah, something like this maybe. Yeah, that is what they're talking about. A triangular area can be in this manner as well. Not too sure. जैसे कि तो मेरी बात से समझ में आ ही गया होगा. अच्छा देखो, अभी मैं तुम्हें बात को आगे बढ़ा रहा हूं थोड़ा सा यहाँ पर, ठीक है. So what I'm trying to tell you here is कि हड़प्पन सिविलाइजेशन को अगर हमें जानना है, so this is how it was discovered, right? This is how it was discovered. Alexander Cunningham initially spotted certain mounds and he thought that this could be important, but nothing much was done. It is credited to D.R. Sahani, who discovered and excavated Harappa, and R.D. Banerjee in 1922 went to Mohenjo-daro. Of course, John Marshall was the person who was heading the entire thing, right? Entire ASI at this point of time. Now, the point that you need to remember, certain interesting factors that you need to remember here. Achha, first thing, I have written it in short form as IVC, but remember, we are going to call it Harappan Civilization, right? This is purely for my understanding and your understanding. A lot of short forms will be written here. So, what I'm trying to tell you here, dekho, dhyan se, carefully. In India, Chalcolithic cultures come later. First, we will notice Harappan, the Bronze Age culture. I told you that how tools have evolved is stone tools, and then there is copper, and then there is Bronze Age. But in India, what we notice is that from Mehergarh, people, it seems that people at Mehergarh acquire knowledge over generations, right? And then we see cities emerging in 2600 to 1900 BCE. And in 1900 BCE, it seems that all the urbanization is over, and we start noticing presence of a lot of Neolithic and Chalcolithic cultures with which Harappan seem to have assimilated. Their urban nature is gone. They will not be called as civilizations, they will be called as cultures. Right? So in India, the Chalcolithic cultures, do you realize they come later than Bronze Age? That's something, because remember, in India, tin was not available locally to a large extent. Copper was present in Western India, but tin was not present. Tin was not present. Right? But technologically superior, Punjab and Sindh area is the nucleus, right? Sindh and Punjab area, this is the nucleus. So the three phases that I keep talking about, I will just write it for you, and let's see if we can make some sense out of it. Yeah, I will write it here. Dekho. 3500 BCE to 2600 BCE. This is called as early Harappa phase. This is where what starts happening is a lot of small towns and villages start cropping up across this region, and they start developing regional cultures, as in they start developing common pottery designs, they start developing common pottery decorations, right? This time period, 3500 BCE to 2600 BCE, is known as a regionalization era. It indicates that people started communicating with nearby regions, and there are certain cultural ideas which are being transmitted and accepted. This is called as regionalization era. 3500 से 3500 to 2600 BCE. You follow my point? You follow my point, right? 3500 to 2600 BCE. After this comes 2600 to 1900 BCE. This is, of course, the mature phase or the urban phase, or which is known as the integration era. This is the time period which is of extreme relevance to us. Why so? Because it is during this time when entire area that you notice, right, entire map that you notice here, right, all these sites, all these small little cities, towns, they start indicating a high level of uniformity. It seems as if they have been united under a very strong authority. Of what nature we cannot comment. Remember, we do not know their script. We do not know their script. But this is the time when their long distance trade flourishes, when their town planning is at its greatest extent. Right, uniform weights and measures, uniform units for measuring length, weights, etc., are found in even remotest and smallest of cities and towns. Right. We also find evidence of large scale cotton cultivation, seals, and bricks, etc., right? Bricks, etc., fire baked bricks, etc. इस बात को आगे अब हम कल ही बढ़ाएंगे. I'm sorry, I'm stopping it in the midway. Classes थोड़ी अजीब अगर हो रही हो तो मैं माफी चाहूंगा. Are you guys feeling slightly awkward about the classes? Please let me know. Yeah, I can understand if it is. But I promise I will be, even more, what should I say, focused as I carry on, right? I will be even more focused. Don't worry. When we take up specific topics. Abhi to I'm just trying to. Thanks, man. Thanks. Can we take class in WebEx? I don't know, man. I have been given these links to go with Zoom. I'm sure they must be, think that this is the best way to go ahead. Okay. Anybody who's having difficulty, and you can definitely, we can talk, and I can try and help you in any which way. Contact me. Please do that. Oh, please talk to the administration once, right? They will make the definition. They will make the arrangements, right? They'll help you out. I'm sure they will help you out. बच्चा देखो बेटा समझो. Badmashi nahi. Listen to me. Listen to me. What do you think? Do I expect you to remember these names? I'm not mad. I have not been able to remember these names. My entire life is about to be getting over. How can I expect you to remember these names in one go? I do not, man. And I will not even assume that. Don't expect that I will come in the tomorrow class and I'll ask you to, but oh, bhai, in 600, who was ruling that area? No, this is not my job. That is not what I'm going to do. I will be repeating these names. I will be giving you these contexts. But I just thought that it is better, it is best if we can have a small teaser right at the start with maps, right? And that is why I've done it. That is why I've done it. And I think it will help us. I think it will help us. Although I must also confess, that I have decided to do away with a couple of topics which are not coming in exam, a lot of topics such as stone tools, species, etc. I have intentionally decided to not cover them because I don't see a lot of questions coming from them any which way, right? So we would try and begin from more relevant portions, more relevant. I would, yes, tomorrow what I intend to do is, tomorrow itself, what I intend to do is, I would give you maybe a couple of important sites, Neolithic sites, and then we will come to immediately to, the features of Harappan civilization. We will look at town planning, the bath, and all these, the dancing girl of Mohenjo-daro, we'll talk about all these cities, their religious belief, their economy, and then, of course, how did they decline? That's what we will look at. Yeah, man, I agree. Sankalp, I agree. So, yeah, Rita, you can absolutely call, no problem at all. How Harappan civilization was different from other civilization in that time. Uh, Harappan civilization was different. First of all, it was larger. It was religiously much more. I'm so sorry. It was larger. I told you, right? It was larger. Cumulatively, it was much larger. Secondly, it was geographically extremely diverse. Right? Entire Mesopotamian civilization was between Tigris and Euphrates. Egyptian civilization was in and around Nile. Right? But do you realize Harappan civilization had a lot more varied weather patterns? In Jammu, there will be a different weather pattern. In Sindh, there will be a different weather pattern. In Western UP, there will be a different weather pattern. Rajasthan, other Gujarat, different coastal cities, different weather pattern. Right? So this kind of a geographical diversity meant something very important. Right? It meant something very important. It meant that people had different क्या कहना चाहिए, mode of occupation. They had different they had a different set of occupations according to local geographies, according to local climate. Some were involved in trading because they were easier, closer to trade routes. Some were with farming. Others were in, you get the point. You get the hang of it, right? Some of them were in industries, bead making, brick making, cotton, depending upon the regions they were present in. So that meant that these guys could adapt easily. And this is why they survive while others do not. Right? Rita Bete, if you try and do your best every time, then I'm sure you would agree, you will always be realizing that, yes, you could do it better, and you will always feel sorry. So yeah, it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle. I do try very hard for my classes. I will not deny that. And I do try and ensure that you guys get the best. But I must also apologize. I must also apologize because I am human and I'm sure I do make a lot of mistakes and I miss a lot of important points as well. But thank God, अभी तक तुम लोग प्यार देते आए हो. So I will also keep trying to work hard and ensure that I earn it. Right? You guys can give me a call whenever, or text me, man. Text me. Texting me is the best, I think, isn't it? But yeah, if you feel that you want to really talk, I wouldn't discourage you. I wouldn't discourage you. But if I do not pick it up, please don't mind. I will call you back. As I told you, I have a 3-year-old son, and I'm a full-time father. I'm a part-time teacher. I'm a full-time father. तो अभी बस उठने ही वाला है. अब मैं अपनी कक्षा, I'll close this session here, I guess, right? If you guys have any other way, any other doubt, let me know. Let me know. Or we will just okay. So I guess I'll just close the session here then. I'll see you tomorrow, and best of luck, and God bless you, and I'll take it up from here onwards. Okay, Harappan civilization से आगे बात को बढ़ाएंगे. One second. Any question that I can give you? Yeah, but take down one question. And write it down. Take down one question immediately. Hang on. No. Do not sign out anybody. I want you guys to take down one question and write it. So the question will be, how was Harappan civilization different from its contemporaries, from its other contemporary Bronze Age civilization? Write 150-word answers and give a conclusion as well. Give a conclusion as well from your side. Right? Once again, the question which I'm saying is, how is Harappan civilization different than its other contemporary Bronze Age civilizations such as Mesopotamia and Egypt? Write down one more question. First question I said is, how is Harappa different from its other contemporary Bronze Age civilizations such as Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilization? Okay, just one question. Yeah. Write it in around 150 words and send it to me or to whomever you're comfortable with, man. To whomsoever you're comfortable with whom you can get an honest opinion about the answer. Right? Just to make it slightly interesting, there's one more assignment I would like to give you guys. I don't know whether you guys would be interested. If you're not interested, I would also accept that. But what I want you to do is pick up one character, one dynasty, or one time period which fascinates you about Indian history, and tell me why. whom do you consider to be the most fascinating person or the dynasty of our history? Right? And why do you believe so? I want you to do not give me facts. Do not give me facts. Whatever you know, basis that memory, frame proper sentences, and write down a 150-word answer. You can use any of your regional dynasties which you have. I think it should be fun if you can submit me this by tonight. I would love to check and see how you write. Right? Chalo, theek hai. So bye for today. And see you soon then. Have fun.